Welcome to the Convinced God Moves podcast, where stories of struggle are met with hope. My name is Audra, and I love to collect stories. I also enjoy telling stories. And today, I'm going to share about one of my biggest breakdowns and one of my biggest breakthroughs. Here's my story on anger. Sometimes our anger shows up in very inconvenient places. For me, my anger has showed up on vacations. I realize now my brain is absolutely overstimulated with noise, lights, motion, people, and a full day of being in the Disney parks usually leads to very little sleep. And we started vacationing when our kids were very young. So as a mom, I was making sure that they were tucked in, and I was also really worried about making sure we have everything we need for the next day ahead, because I felt like we would be rushing out the door. Fast forward years of vacationing at Disney to just 9 years ago. It's my oldest daughter's senior year. I had tried to stay ahead of what conflicts I figured were going to be coming up in vacationing with teenagers. I don't like conflict. I especially don't like conflict on vacation because you don't have space and time to retreat from each other. You're together all the time in confined spaces. I felt like we had laid the ground rules down, and day 2, we were already way off track. I had an earache. I thought I was getting sick. And everybody could see I was unraveling. So they were going into the park without me so I could rest and sleep. But instead of honoring that, I was out researching, and I was being a detective, finding out why this place was so deceptive. I went from staff person to staff person, and I ended up running into this head manager, and I felt like I stumbled upon him. But on this side of it, I imagine people were alerting him, watch this one, watch this crazy lady. He gave me some advice, which I totally took out of context, marched myself back into the Magic Kingdom and demanded better service. And by the time I came back to the room, my family was all there, like, where have you been? You were supposed to be sleeping. So we had more conflict. And I finally decided I need to fly home. This isn't working. I shouldn't be here. I tried to find a flight home. Lance tried to find me a flight home. The employees in the Polynesian resort tried to find me a flight home. But it was spring break, and there was no flight. And at this point, I was quite sleep deprived and blaming Disney for all my problems. And so I demanded that they give me a flight home on a private jet. Now, I didn't want to admit that I was doing that for several months after we got back home, but I'm able to admit now that's exactly what I was demanding. And that led to the staff members at the Polynesian resort finding me a family room. This was an extra room they kept in case there was some type of issue with the family and they needed a private place to meet and work things out. And I have to say, on this side of all of that breakdown, that the customer service was pretty excellent at Disney. They offered two staff members to be a mediator between Lance and myself. And eventually they called an ambulance and they even paid for that ambulance ride to the local hospital. When I got to the hospital, they wanted me to fill out a paper of why I'm being admitted. And I wrote and wrote and wrote, trying to give all the details of why this trip had gone so wrong. And the admin person just came over and said, "Good job, let me take that." The biggest thing I remember in the hospital is wrestling with the staff because I needed a really big shot in my rear end to put me to sleep, but I did not want to cooperate. After I had been given enough sleeping aids and had slept in that hospital for a while, then I took another ambulance ride. This one was to a crisis center for behavioral health. Arriving, the EMT said, "If you will put your shoes on and walk into this place, it will go better for you than if we roll you in." I took his advice. I walked in. I told the lady who was behind the desk that I was definitely in the wrong place, that I just needed to sleep, that there's no way I could sleep here. It's a big multi-purpose room, all these people talking, men and women, all ages. And she just assured me that I needed to take these pills, and she would show me where my bed was. And so I took the pills, and she showed me how to put a sheet over my eyes, and I was able to sleep. I was there a few days. My kids flew home on the airplane alone for the first time. Lance waited to help me find a flight home. I came home and I was unwilling to apologize for quite a while. Isn't anger deceptive? I think even after having a ton of sleep and working with great doctors and psychiatrists and having space from this family conflict that I absolutely blew up in my mind. And maybe I felt like, too, I deserved a lot of grace because I'm bipolar. But more than that, I felt very justified to be angry because the rule book I laid out wasn't followed and things got worse and worse. And now I really believe my brain just can't handle that place. There is too much going on. I can't even watch action movies at night. My brain can't handle it. I just feel like I have to be gentle with the subject of Disney because my family still loves Disney. They still go. I don't go. I have this little piece of envy when I see married couples that have vacation plans that they both love. Like they both love cruising or they both love amusement parks. So 9 years ago, I got so mad that the script that I had laid out was not followed. And my motivation was I didn't want conflict and I hate conflict. I wanted peace at all cost. We went to marriage counseling. Lance felt like our marriage was great. I thought our marriage was terrible. The counselor met with one of us at a time. Lance comes out of his one-on-one session and he looks great. I come out of my one-to-one session. I'm bawling. There is so much pent up anger and frustration and hurt. The counselor explains two things. First, he explains there are ways to fight, but more than how you fight, more than how you discuss a difference of opinion, is understanding that conflict must exist in a relationship. It's not good, it's not bad, it is mandatory that it exists. You are two different people, male and female, from two different family backgrounds with two different sets of personality and skills and traits. And you are coming together to live side by side. And conflict will be a reality multiple times a week. I have been a conflict avoider my whole life. And with that grew resentment and anger and bitterness. And I was so proud and arrogant to think, surely my life is not to be with Lance for much longer. Surely God is going to strike him down and I will be free to be a widow. Isn't that ugly? With inability to have conflict, I also have this personality trait where I am a people pleaser. And I want everybody to think I'm great, including Lance. It would have been healthy for me to say, Lance, you go ahead and take the girls to Disney. I'm going to sit this one out. I found I resented agreeing to do things that I really didn't want to do, but I didn't want to appear mean by not doing them. And so I really had to work hard at building the ability to say no. It still is hard. I went to a class that kind of was like an AA, but it was more broad. You didn't have to have an alcohol problem to go. You just had to have a habit, a hurt, or a hang up that you needed to work on. And I thought, oh, I got all of those. So that program is called Celebrate Recovery. You go to a big group, and afterwards you can go to a meeting room and sit around a circle and have a little bit of accountability. With this program, they have this extra step. They call it the step study. And it came with books, and it had a lot of reflective work and again, trying to see where your hang up is. And over, marriage is coming up and vacations is coming up. We would meet with the same 8 people once a week and go over our homework. And I just kept seeing this glaring issue of anger. Somehow I realized I did a passive aggressive surrender. I did one of these. Okay, fine. But the problem with saying fine is you have now given permission. And if you have given permission, you can't be upset when your partner is doing what you gave them permission to do. And that includes going on another Disney trip. If you were asked, no doubt pretty quickly got irritated with the question and simply said, okay, fine, that's now on me. I can't be mad we're going. I agreed. I may have said it rude. I may have tried to communicate that I'm not okay, but I gave permission. So, working through this class, I came to the decision that I will accept conflict in our marriage. And the way I had to phrase it in my mind that made sense was, when I feel my adrenaline rising and my anger boiling, and I feel like Lance is repeating his standpoint, but he's not hearing my standpoint, I need to hold my ground and say, no more okay, fine. No, I am not okay with what you are saying you want. No. And I'm so glad that Lance was gracious to put up with my ugliness on trying to get that out, because it was hard for me. It was not natural. It felt so mean. But what was worse was to live day in, day out, accepting something I wasn't okay with. No more. Lance and I have been married 30 years now. I have grown to really appreciate and like him. So as our relationship is improving, a lot of the change is simply by being able to communicate. And when I finally started doing that, and Lance coming around and saying, okay, yeah, I support that, he wasn't nearly as difficult as I had made him out in my mind. I know my stubborn heart, and I don't just up and change. I can't flip a switch of what is completely against my nature. Only God can do that. That God wants us to let him in and have authority in our lives. That's Psalms 119, and it says things like, my soul is weary with sorrow. Strengthen me according to your word. Teach me knowledge and good judgment, for I trust your commands. You are good, and what you do is good. Teach me your decrees. The unfolding of your word gives light. It gives understanding to the simple. Direct my footsteps according to your word. Let no sin rule over me. In the last verse, I have strayed like a lost sheep. Seek your servant, for I have not forgotten your commands. I am finding more and more that God is not a coach who has a plan and a whistle and he's shouting out, go this way, do that, do better. God isn't one to rush and hurry. God's way of working and speaking, I think in my life, like 99% of the time, is a very gentle walk. Psalms 23. It is such a picture of what our prayer life should feel like. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. That isn't like a coach blowing a whistle, pushing. There is the potential for something supernatural through God's good Holy Spirit coming through the door of your heart. It is possible to change.